Well, good afternoon, everyone. What a wonderful thing to have everybody face to face again and meeting each other in such a wonderful venue. I've been here last time, 2019, and this time around the exhibition and Terrapin has exceeded at least my expectations. My name is Ypatios Moysiadis. I'm the managing partner of Wattcrop, and what we're going to discuss today is actually how we can add value to our development portfolio by utilizing tools, digitalizations and processes that are actually required from potential off-takers. So I'm going to be sharing some of our experiences when we develop things both here in the UK as well as in Southeast Europe. Some of the discussions we're having currently with PPA, corporate off-takers, and what these guys are looking for, and what sort of tools are we utilizing and what we're doing in order to maximize the value of our assets. So this is not a presentation to sell you anything or persuade that we're doing something which is right. What we're going to do is give you a presentation of our own sort of experiences and the discussions we're also having in public forums as Solar UK and Solar Power Europe. You will allow me to start with a couple of slides on us. We are big on vision in Wattcrop, and we're all for generating energy from carbon zero energy generation. And the way we do it is by doing two things: committing on engaging the local communities and committing on protecting and enhancing the environment where we can. And this is quite important down the line, and I will explain how our vision actually translates into what off-takers and investors want at the end. So who are we? As I said, we are a company which is a pure development platform. We are part of Zero Generation and Macquarie GIG. Actually, we have a JV with Zero, which was concluded last summer. So we're primarily developing in Southeast Europe, Greece, Bulgaria, and then the rest of the Balkans, and in the UK. And we are across solar PV, onshore wind, and battery storage. Our current portfolio lies at about 750 megawatts of solar PV, and also we are right now developing 3 sites, which is 200 megawatts, 800 megawatt hours. So 4 sites that we have submitted for licensing. So we're end-to-end. That means that we do everything in-house, all the development, everything we need to do. We're going into construction, and then at the end we will decide whether to sell or keep. But that's a decision for later on in the stage. So we're starting things from very early stage, green site development. We are finding land with our own sort of people, making the deals with the landowners and the farmers, and we continue from then on. But let's concentrate a bit more on the basics. How do we optimize and digitalize our solar PV development? And let's concentrate on that. What sort of strategies do we use? What sort of tools do we utilize? First of all, let's start with the basics. We got 4 phases within the lifetime of an asset. You start with development, you move on to construction, to operations, and decommissioning. And each stage in solar has something unique. You've got different stakeholders that they are also information and data keepers. And these stakeholders need to transmit the information to the next level. It's a bit different than wind, perhaps, where you start with the O&M, you select a provider, a manufacturer, and you stick with them for the foreseeable future, even through the services sector. In solar, we're a bit unique on that in each stage, you might have a different stakeholder and you need to transmit data. And that sort of data is, that data transmission process is where things get lost. And then we end up with frustrated asset managers and O&Ms trying to find out what happened with the data rooms and why the as-built plans are not in the right sort of folder. So let's concentrate a bit on the development side. So when we discuss about development, we are trying to see what sort of value data have. And data has value in 2 different and unique ways. One, it has value because things that we do in development, they are valuable in the construction phase. For example, things we do in investigating the land, doing soil analysis, doing horizon shading, doing design optimization, providing information on flooding, on albedo measurements and all of that. But also more importantly, all this data has a monetary value. And why? Because when we're discussing with off-takers, we've reached a point that the off-takers, the likes of Amazon's, Microsoft's, and of this world, they are extremely engaged and reliable on ESG criteria. So the way we develop something and the proof that we can provide that we've developed something with, we've done an ethical development, we've engaged the local community, we've done our environmental studies, we're not developing on Natura 2000 areas, and all of these elements are actually elements that are appreciated when we are negotiating PPAs. And even some of the off-takers are actually denying of negotiating PPAs that they do not fill or they not fulfill this KPI, this ESG KPI criteria. So that's why data and how we capture this sort of processes we do as developers have monetary value as well. But let's see the phases within the development process. We start with the initial land acquisition phase, where you might have, to identify significant land plots. You might have situations like in the UK where you have one landowner, and that landowner will provide 30, 50, 60 hectares of land. But also when you go to markets like Italy, like Greece, for example, the land is very fragmented. So you need to start creating a puzzle of land in order to create a critical mass and build your own systems. So what sort of information do we keep from there? We have names, contacts. You might have 10 different owners owning the same sort of plot of land. So imagine the difficulties of coordinating paying rent down the line as an asset manager where you don't have this sort of information from upfront. Then you go into the project licensing phase, and obviously there you need to do all sorts of research, and you need to start keeping data on the fauna and flora, on the productivity rate of the land. Is it high productivity land, Class A land? Can we actually develop things here? How can we do things? And going all the way to how the reporting is done, what sort of information do we keep? Do we keep data on when we submitted things, on the duration of the development process? When did we actually get an answer? And unfortunately, here in the UK, we've seen that during the planning process, at least, we have now planning applications that in order to get an answer, actually the timeline has exceeded 200, 250 days since application. And we see here a clear bottleneck. But rest assured that it's not just the UK, but also other markets that we have the same sort of issue. Going into the production license, which it's a part in a few markets, maybe it's not the case here, but what sort of information do we provide to the regulators? What is the DCAC rating? What sort of designs are we doing? Are we trying to maximize our DC installed capacity and worry about optimizing it later on down the line? 2 years down the line where we might have the 800 watt panels. So now we're designing things with 500, 540 just to be able to maximize the DC capacity we have. What sort of DCAC ratio are we calculating? These are all serious information we need to keep. On the grid offer side, key point, and it's a pain point for everybody across Europe and across the different markets. What sort of distances are we looking at? What sort of lines are we going to connect to? Are we going to propose a private substation? Are we going to connect to an existing substation? What will be the route of the cable? What sort of way leaves do we need to have? I've been on the other side, on the O&M side, trying to fix cables over somebody else's land without having actually secured or having copies of the way leaves we needed. And this was a major pain because you needed to renegotiate from the beginning, having access to the land to do major rectification works. Also the meteo data. What sort of wind do we have there? Are we going to use trackers? Are we going to have a more robust structure on the outside, perhaps of the panel? And also, what sort of species we have here in the UK, a joke about, I guess a lot of you have faced sort of very similar situations with crested newts. Yeah, how many times we cannot develop a site because we have crested newts on site and we needed to prevent or to preserve the habitat. And so on and so forth. In the wind side, the wind that we're developing, we have issues with migrating birds. So we cannot actually put turbines on or we could, but we don't, because we have this sort of, this sort of vision of being an ethical developer. So all these sort of issues need to be captured somehow, and this is information which is critical in the next sort of steps. And we're going into the GIS sample. This is something we were using at the beginning. Right now we're using ArcGIS. So this is an area we're developing, and this is the sites we have. It's not very clear. I'm afraid the picture is not very clear, but we have the sites on different color codings. We have red sites and green sites that we're developing in a specific area. And blue sites, blues are the ones we've closed. Reds are the ones that somehow we didn't win or we excluded from the development process. And greens are sites that we are negotiating. But what I'm trying to demonstrate here with this, and especially with the next picture, is how when we start using GIS, and that's why we started using ArcGIS, for example, is we can actually guide our land finders and developers to concentrate specifically on an area. So this is the utilization of technology and how it applies to our development processes. So we start with the area of development. We look at the different lines we have there, and then we start building up a puzzle of exclusion zones. So here you have exclusions of Natura 2000 areas. You might have exclusions of major roads, of rivers, of land creeks, flooding zones. So we're starting building a database within a GIS system, and this is what we've used in the beginning. It's just a simple Google Earth. You can use QGIS, which is a free tool, for example, and you can start building up a picture of where you need to concentrate your efforts, because then you will not have issues with archaeology, you will not have issues with visual impact assessment, you will not have issues with areas of outstanding natural beauty. So you can actually map out all these processes on a GIS system and then concentrate on the land more specifically, and send your people or your agents in the area to do specific work outside these zones. So this is a good example, for example, on how we started developing in between, and straight away when we had landowners bringing us land outside or inside these sort of zones, we were excluding these land plots from our development. Or even if we did a mistake and we had included something in the past, when we saw again the data, this mistake was captured, and we didn't continue on signing leases. Now, my approach is that in every sort of situation you have cases where you might adopt a minimum approach when you do data collection, or you might have best practices. So from me, a minimum sort of approach as a developer, what sort of data and information do I need to capture within my system, is first of all, you need to have a consistent data room. And I'm telling you that as an investor right now, we're doing more than 3 gigawatts of due diligence on licenses that we are buying. And I've been doing this as a consultant as well in my previous life, and we've seen some horrendous things. We've seen things that, you go from one project to the other in the same portfolio, and folders are not the same. You have different names in the files, different names on the projects, and even 10 years after being in this sector, we see again and again the same sort of mistakes happening. The use of GIS, as I demonstrated, it's a free tool, and you can easily demonstrate to an investor your line of thought, your process of why you've chosen site X from site Y. The land surveys, you have a minimum which you can do your topography, you can do your land survey, but right now, as a best practice, what we do is we send the land surveyors to do a land survey, but also utilizing drones in order to do the land contour. And once we have a land contour, then we can utilize systems from like PVKs to optimize our design and maximize our yield. You have to do a horizon analysis, but it's not only that. You need to do albedo measurements. For example, I see people discussing about benefits of bifacial panels. How do you know what sort of effect it's going to have on your system if you haven't done an albedo effect? It's like developing a wind farm without having wind measurements. It's just, you have no data to support your argument to an off-taker that I've chosen bifacial panels, which might cost 1 or 2 pence more, and in this current environment, 1 or 2 pence more are critical than normal panels. So it's a building up a story, if you would like, yeah? How do you present to an investor, and how do you build up a story of why you've chosen this? Have you done your due diligence? Have you been thorough enough in your selection? This is just a representation of a data room, simple. We don't even see that. Yeah, we see things that are truly and honestly horrendous. But try to keep things on a steady state. Try to have a steady way of representing and presenting the data information to everybody. Now, going back to geo-reference data, and you will have a lot of drone operators here that they're going to say, and they're going to give you the value of that, and I'm a true believer. What sort of data can we put in a GIS system? From settlement limit zones to forestry, archaeological sites, which is extremely important, especially if you're developing in Southeast Europe, in Italy, in Spain, in Greece, but even here in the UK, I had a lot of discussions about visual impact assessments and what sort of mitigation measures we could take. You've got military exclusion zones, flooding zones, AOMBs, and grid lines. So having all of that into a centralized system, it will save you time. Now, what are our next steps? So we're actually developing a software. We're going to use it initially for us, and this is something that came out of a necessity. We looked around in the market for a development software, and there's no development software. You might have software for project management on construction. You might have 100 softwares for the services, for asset management, and for O&M, but you have no software for development. Software that can demonstrate and capture information during the development process on a step-by-step basis, but also combine that with georeference data. So we're building our own software as a necessity. We're thinking of making it available one way or another. We are true believers also of sharing information, so of free information, really. For example, you can download the Greek market outlook from our site for free, and it's an 80-page document. And also we will continue on the digitalization process. We will start integrating all the different subcontractors and vendors we have from people that they take measurements on the ground all the way to drone operators. And also we're looking to very soon create a 101 best practice manual, again, as a free sort of material for everybody, just sharing our own experiences. And this is because we want to engage into a discussion with the market, and we believe that sharing information between all of us is the way forward. So we're having some beta version testing. We're trying to put partners that we have through Macquarie, GIG, and Cero to join into this platform. We're increasing our portfolio. And also digitalizing our processes. We still work as developers in an Excel sheet. Yeah, all our trackers are in Excel sheets. Man, we've got Power BI, we've got Azure, we've got SharePoint. Let's start creating some automations here, all right? And also we're probably going to launch the software. It might be as a service, it might not be as a service. We will decide later on. So, a last pitch. If you have land to lease, if you have projects to sell, or if you're looking for someone to cooperate on your portfolio, come and talk to us. Thank you very much.